Hi there, this is Jennifer. Welcome to Crafting in Carrollville. So glad you've tuned in today. Sorry I'm late on my video. Don't think I did one last week. This is some of the materials that we're going to be working with in today's video. You can see the new Santa mold from IOD. You can also see some frames or a frame that I picked up at our local Goodwill outlet bins. I found 6 of these frames, portraits. Whoever did them actually did a really great job. They're pet portraits that were turned into like a oil painting type thing. A photograph that was rendered to look like an oil painting. I've picked up 6 of them, and you can see I'm just painting the face out. I knew as soon as I saw them I wanted to use them, and I knew a project would come up that would allow me to use them. I didn't want to put my own artwork in them because I tend to put my own artwork behind glass. And these didn't have glass. So I'm painting the face white, and then the frames I'm painting this beige color. I guess it would be like a ecru color. Really like this color. I just turn it into chalk paint when I get it from Home Depot. I have samples mixed up, and then I stir in a few tablespoons of calcium carbonate. I am giving my portrait of Santa a body because I can't stand the thought of him not having a body. So I found a Santa portrait on Creative Fabrica, and I will link in the description box the portrait that I used, and I just cropped out the part that I didn't want and then printed it. So I'm making 6 of these. So I printed out 3 on each piece of rice paper, just stacked them on top of each other, sprayed them with hairspray, and decoupaged them down to my canvas. And now I'm just using hot glue to put Santa on his body where he belongs. Listen, I had a real problem doing a portrait with a floating head. That's just not the way it's done. I'm an old portrait artist at heart. Anybody who knows me knows that I've been in the portrait business for a very long time. To paint that hat, I want to match the red and the brown and the tones of the colors that are already in his suit. So I've just poured out some red and brown paint, and I'm not really even blending it in on the plate. I'm blending it as I apply it to the hat because I want it to be sort of splotchy like it is on the clothes that he's wearing. So as much as I can, I'm going to match the tones and the texture of what's going on in those clothes. When I can't get in there with my wide brush, I get a small brush and I paint those colors on the hat. And you can see just by adding the hat, the color to the hat, that really, see there, it's starting to come together. You can see where I'm going with this. When I saw the Santa Claus mold, I knew that it was a portrait, and that's how I was going to treat it. Super excited about the opportunity to do this. Now I'm mixing some colors in for his skin tone. I'm using white. I'm going to use a very light pink and also a light orange to create a skin tone. And I've mentioned that I'm doing 6 of these, so I'm doing them one right after the other. In other words, since I'm painting skin right now and I have the paint mixed up, I'm going to paint the skin on all 6 of my Santas, and then I'm going to move on to the next step. Using a small artist brush to get in there and paint all the skin on his face. It's important to know that if you've painted an IOD mold before, because of the ridges and the high points and all the details that are in those molds, it sort of acts like a barrier, so that it's almost, you'd have to try really hard to get the paint where it doesn't belong. So if you're thinking about painting a Santa Claus or another IOD mold that you have, keep that in mind. It's not that difficult. They make it pretty easy. It's sort of like a paint by number, or just a regular coloring book, because all the lines are there. You can't necessarily see them, but you can definitely feel them with your brush as you're going. My litmus test for whether or not I'm going to buy the new IOD products are, did I think of a project on my own that I want to do with it? In other words, I don't sit down and watch videos the day that these products are released. I look at the purplepaintedlady.com. That's where I buy my stuff. So when I look at the Purple Painted Lady, I see all the new release stuff and I see if that's something that I think I can work with. And if it is, I buy it. And then I might watch a video or two because I want to see how other people use them. Now, let's not forget that Santa has rosy cheeks, so I'm adding some rose color to his cheeks, and also he has a nose like a cherry. Let's not forget, we have a very wonderful description of Santa Claus in 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. So here I am. I'm using a dry brush to blend what I've put on, and don't worry, he's not going to look splotchy like that. He's going to have a blended skin tone, but he's not going to have an even skin tone because nobody does. I'm using white paint just to get in all the brim of his hat and that pom-pom that's on his hat, and I'm smashing that paint down into the crevices there. I want all that paint to go down because I have something else I'm going to do to the top of that surface. Now I'm mixing up some paint, white paint, and some more of my ecru paint, my beige paint, and I'm trying to make like an off-white to paint all the beards on my Santa Clauses. I don't want his beard to be snow white, and I don't want it to be beige either. So somewhere in between, like a creamy white color is what I'm going for the undertone of his beard. And like I said, I'm painting all 6 of these at one time. So as soon as I finish that one, I grab another one until I've painted all 6. When you're painting a deep texture like this particular mold, you're trying to get down into all of those crevices. If you get too much paint and it's pooled down in there, you can use a brush that, a clean brush, not just a dry brush, but a clean brush to scoop some of that paint out. And you'll see me do that periodically as I'm painting all of these. Now we're going to work on this hat. I said we're going to match the tones of the clothing, and it doesn't quite match. You'll notice that there's some haze going on in that clothing. It's almost like there's a little bit of a film, like it's old. It's a watercolor type finish that those clothes have. So I'm going to apply some white wax, and you're going to see right away that it brings those 2 pieces together. It makes them look very cohesive, and now they match perfectly. You'll see as I wipe the wax back and reapply and all the things that I do to gain not only the look but the texture of that piece. And I also like it that the hat is smooth and crinkled, and his clothes look like that too. In other words, they're smooth. The surface is smooth. There's no texture on the surface of them, but there's actually folds in the clothing and in the hat. So the link that I'm going to put in the description box for Creative Fabrica has many, many choices you could use, so they're not all the same texture and that kind of stuff. So we're kind of going for an old world Santa here. Here I am. I'm not able to get that wax out with my towel, so I'm using a dry brush, a clean dry brush, just to fetch some of that wax out from the crevices. That's not where I wanted it. I really wanted the wax more on the surface and on the high points because that's where it will be, it's serving as a highlight. So I'm just getting some wax on the flat part of my brush and scraping the flat part of my brush against those high points. I've been battling a shingles infection, so I haven't been on here. I haven't posted a video, and I also have something like a sore throat going on, so I haven't felt like talking. So the best way to combat that was to just go out in my workshop and create. And like I said, I knew when I bought these frames I was going to turn them into something great. And then last week I went on the Purple Painted Lady's website to see what the buzz was all about with IOD, and I did buy several different items, so you'll be seeing some of those things at use in my workshop for the next couple weeks anyway. We have shows coming up, one next week and one in October, so I will have some Christmas things to offer, and I cannot wait to show you what I'm doing with the snow globe that IOD put out. I literally am so excited about it. I'm more excited about that project than I am this project, and I'm pretty excited about this project. Like, now I've painted those beards, all 6 of them, that creamy ecru color, and now I'm coming in with my brown wax. And listen, all the other girls that I saw since I've been watching the videos the last couple days used what they call a glaze, and it's super thin, like it's so runny. So this is just the Waverly Antique Wax, and I have thinned it down so it is absolutely runny. Like, there's a balance there between too runny and just right. So you'll have to play with it a little bit. You'll know when it's just right when you can pretty much just see, I have a lot on my brush. You can pretty much just let it flow into those creases. Now I'm using my favorite paint in the world. It's called White Flash. This is a color shift paint from Folk Art, made by the Plaid Company. And I'm just using the flat part of my brush again to basically scrape that paint onto the top of the brim of that hat and that pom-pom. I'm not getting it down into the creases. I mentioned that. I shoved that white paint down in there, but this is just a finish for me on the surface, and it's going to give it a lot of iridescence. You're going to see that, and you'll see it more as we go along in our video. I'm trying to show you, but I'm not sure how much the camera's actually picking up, but it's an effect that I absolutely love. I use this paint on a lot of different things, especially around the holidays, because glitter's not always our friend. Like last year I did so many projects with glitter, and I will tell you this, I still come across glitter in my workshop. I don't really appreciate that. Sorry, I had to take a little break to cough up a lung. I've been really struggling with an itchy throat. So as I apply the wax, I'm also using a wet baby wipe to take the wax off. At this point, I would call this a glaze. It's not really sticky per se at this point. It's really just a glaze, just like that. I'm also taking the time to wax the face of Santa Claus. You can see that as I work, I have blended those tones into his face, and he no longer looks like he has, rosacea or any skin thing going on. He's taken his meds. He's looking good. Now, he does need to work on his wrinkle cream. He needs to really take that seriously. He's got some 11s going on. You'll see that. As I apply this wax, I love what it's doing to the eyes, because I am going to paint color into his eyes. And this is basically giving me a really good suggestion of where the parts of his eyes are. I can see the pupils, I can see the irises. That's really coming together. So I turn my Santa the other way because I want to be sure I get the wax into all the brim of his hat and all the edges of everything, because that's where that detail needs to be. Now I'm going to put these eyes in here. I'm going to start by using the tiniest brush that I have in my arsenal of brushes, and I'm applying the teeniest bit of black paint just to establish pupils, and then I can work around them from here. And I'm not sure which order I go in. Okay, so I'm going in the right order. That's good on me. Sometimes I do that. Now I'm going to add some color to his eyes, and I haven't waxed this guy's face or anything yet. I don't have those great lines that came when I waxed his face. I'm just kind of winging it because I saved this one out especially to do the eyes, so that I could show you how unintimidating it is to do these eyes. It's so simple, and I feel like if you were going to do this, the part that you would be intimidated by the most is doing the eyes. So I've already given him some pupils, and now I'm taking the tiniest dabs of blue paint. It could be any blue paint that you want. It could be any color paint that you want, but blue is really going to show up the best as far as I'm concerned. And I'm just dotting the color on there. I'm trying to retain the shape of the pupil. So now I have some light blue paint on there. And y'all know that our eyes are not, just one one color. They are multiple tones, multiple colors. So now I'm coming in with this metallic sapphire paint, and I'm going to dot that color in there. I'm using just the tiniest amount. That's why I'm dipping into the cap of my paint, because I don't want my brush to go, super deep onto the metal part of the brush. I just want it barely on the tip of my brush. So now I'm going to dot that color in there. And as I'm doing it, I'm not super worried about the paint getting onto the inner eyelid, either top or bottom, because that will just add a shadow effect and make it darker and look like eyelashes when I come back in and wax this face, because I am going to wax over the eyes and on the face. I haven't done that all the way on this one yet. So now I've done all the eyes, and you're going to see a much better close-up picture of that. And now, because I've chosen to leave the beard sort of an off-white, I'm going to come in with white paint and brighten it up. Just with the dry brush, I'm going to add a lot of brightness to his beard by whitening up the surface that you can see there. And that really sets that detail off. It gives it a multi-tonal effect, and I love what that does. So when you're doing this project, listen, the IOD sisters have done so much of the work. The detail, the picture, it's already there. And so I feel like the very best way to handle this is not to, pour glaze on it and call it a day. We can add our own creativity to this by giving him a body, and also by giving him all the color that he deserves. He's just such a special piece, and what I saw right away was a portrait. I just saw artwork, and we've talked about this a lot. I love artwork. I'm coming in with a dry brush and basically just stippling on my leftover paint from the beards. It's a combination of white and ecru, and I'm just sort of going for a plaster effect here. Like I want it to be stippled. I don't want it to be smooth. I couldn't get it smooth at this point anyway, and that's fine. So I'm just stippling it on there. I'm making sure not to hit anything important, because I want that texture. I'm going to wax some of that with some of my thicker antique wax. I'm not going to use the thin down stuff because I don't want it to run anywhere that it shouldn't run. I've been working under a magnifier for this project, and that's why I really couldn't show you any closer of the eyes, because I have to be able to see and keep it in the frame so you can see. And so to avoid lifting it to my face to see it, I had it under a big magnifier that my husband bought me, which is super, super convenient. But I wanted to explain that to you, that's what I needed to make myself see it. So I'm going to do that on all 6, of course. I'm going to give them all the same background with the stippled on paint. It sort of looks like stucco or plaster. I like that look. I feel like this is really an old world type of project. And Santa's old. Like, I know, I'm 53 and I knew him when I was a child, and my grandparents knew him when they were children, so he's been around a while, and that's pretty evident. But like I said, look at his wrinkles. Like I'm sort of wanting to tell him, like, honey, you need some retinol. But I should be the last one to speak, because I need some too. Now I'm coming in with that, you're going to watch me do one more background, because that's what you needed serious instruction on, was stippling paint onto a background. We should watch that all 6 times, and then you'd have it down. I'm really just kidding. I have not felt well this week, so it feels so good to be done with this project, and getting this video ready was a process this week. So you can see now. Listen, the eyes are not intimidating. Don't forget to give him a little white flash in each of his eyes. Our description of Santa always says that he had a sparkle in his eye, so you want to go back with your white paint and give him just 2 dots, one in each eye, in the exact same place. So that would be the finishing touch on your eyes, and I want you to try it. It's so simple. And if you mess up, you know what? You just paint it out and do it again. I'm adding brown wax to my frames because they all have a different texture. That all the frames are different, and you'll see that in my reveal pictures. So I'm adding some brown wax just to bring out all that detail. I don't want that to go to waste either. Santa is definitely the star of this show, but I do appreciate the fact that these frames were also very pretty. If you like what you see here today, like, share, subscribe, that's the big one, comment, all of those things. You're really going to help me out on YouTube. And it's a lot more motivating to be super consistent when I'm hearing from y'all and we can interact. I really appreciate that. There we go. He's all finished. I finished all 6. So excited about the way that turned out. Don't forget to watch my next video. I'm working on something super spectacular for that snow globe. I can't wait to show you. It's actually very simple, but the concept is what it's all about. Anyway, this is the end of our video. Stick around and watch to see how everything turns out. I really appreciate y'all being here, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.